Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second episode of Talking Talent. This is a subcast of the Through the Curtain podcast. I am joined today by Double K, and I am Tommy T. We are your hosts for Talking Talent. Again, just as the same as the first episode, we do have Smokey Z, who is hanging out behind the curtain for us, taking care of our video and audio effects. Folks, this is going to be our first video podcast that we're going to tape and air. This show is going to be focused on a review that myself and Double K did on a VCW show, and that's Vanguard Championship Wrestling that's based out of Norfolk, Virginia. This show occurred on February the 2nd, and it was from the Norfolk Masonic Temple, which I believe is a regular location for them.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so... And I just want to touch on a couple of things right off the bat, and I want to talk about the production value that goes into those shows. So you and I have seen several shows. This was definitely a better, a more well put together production. Some of the lighting, the effects that they used. They have the elevated ramp for their entrances, and I think that's a partnership that they probably developed with the Masonic Temple. Clearly they knew what they were doing there. But I just thought it was really well done. The environment was good, and it really does provide comfortable seating for the folks that were there in attendance. Tickets were, I think, $25 in advance, or it was $25 for floor seats
and 20
for
general admission.
Yeah, for general admission. But one of the things that I think this show did really well that I want to commend them on right off the bat is, folks, they gave free tickets to anybody that was affected by the government shutdown. And absolutely, that was something that I think that, they deserve an overwhelming amount of credit for. They didn't have to do that.
No.
And their tickets aren't expensive to begin with, but that was something that they chose to do that was really above and beyond anything that they could have done.
Right, I mean, it was just a classy move.
Sure. So, they recognized that night, and, we just wanted to make sure that we talked about it briefly on the show because we think that was something that we needed to give credence to. So we've got 8 matches to review on this card and 45 minutes to do it in. So, folks, we have committed that we're not going to spend 13 minutes talking about one match again. We're going to have to be more mindful of our time. But, if we continue to see the following that we've seen so far, folks, our first episode that myself and Double K have done has already gotten over 200 listens, and we are now up to 15 downloads. We're now available on several platforms. We're available on Apple Podcasts. We're available on YouTube. We're available on Spotify, and we are just a few episodes away from being available on iHeartRadio. So that's going to be a huge step for us. We thank everybody that's taken the time to give us a chance and take a listen to what we have to say and now to talk about the matches specifically. So let's go ahead and get started with our first match. This was originally supposed to be Chris Silvo versus, I cannot remember the gentleman's first name. But he was replaced. He couldn't make the event.
Yeah.
So there was a surprise replacement, which ended up being Damian Wayne. I had not seen him before, but I did a little bit of research on him, and apparently he was a ring vet for VCW, and he has wrestled in several areas. He actually wrestled with the Pharaoh, in GXW, about 10 years ago. I was able to find some pictures of that.
Oh, wow.
So he's been around a while, and at the end of this match, he even mentioned that he had been doing this for a long time and that he's now 47 years old and that he could still go, and I think this match was proof of that.
100% proved it.
So Chris Silvio, great character, definitely a heel, and can work the mic really well.
Oh, yeah.
I was very impressed with his ability to talk when he came out there. Damian Wayne, when he came out, I mean, this is a guy that the ring gear, the music, the look, the bandana, he just has it. And it was great to see the crowd pop the way they did when he came out. So the match itself, I would not have guessed that he was 47 years old.
No, no. And, you and I were sitting there watching, never really having seen a VCW show. This match was a great way to start the night.
Sure.
Silvio on the mic had your attention immediately. You had no idea who was coming out. And like you just said, when Damian Wayne's music hit, that's my kind of music. So it immediately had my attention. I was drawn in. And then, like you said, the character matched up with the music well. This guy gets in the ring, and he looks like he could handle you at a bar on a Friday or Saturday night if he needed to.
Oh, absolutely. I'm pretty sure he came to the show with the Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the look that he had. I mean, to be honest. And he sold it well.
He did. He did.
And he just had the complete look, complete with the, buzz cut hair, with the black fading to gray. So it was well put together for him.
Sure.
Chris Silvio, again, though, great guy.
Yeah.
His character puts together, he has put that character together well also. The match had some pretty high impact spots in it, including some work on the outside of the ring and inside the ring, some turnbuckle work. So I was really happy with this. It was a great opening match for them, and I'm going to go ahead and give them 4 stars for their match.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Talking about the ring work, there was a moment, and it was the ending of this match that it literally got you and I out of our seats almost. And it was that pile driver.
Oh, yeah.
To end the match. It was, he had gone for it a couple times earlier on.
Yeah.
It didn't get it. And it looked for all the world that he was setting up a power bomb. And it would have been cool. It would have been awesome to see that if he'd have gotten it. So that's where we were at. And then all of a sudden he pops off that turnbuckle and pulls out this pile driver so quick. My mouth was open, your mouth was open, our eyes were open. And I can't repeat exactly what we yelled out when we saw it on here, but use your imagination, guys. Again, it was a phenomenal match to start the night. Set the tone for the rest of the evening. I'm going to match you at a 4.
All right. Well, great job to the badass Damian Wayne.
Mm-hmm. I'm a fan now.
And Chris Silvio. Mm-hmm. So you want to take the lead on the next one?
Yeah. So match number 2 pitted Timmy Danger versus Joe Keys. And these are 2 guys that we're somewhat familiar with. We've seen Timmy several times, and we've seen Joe Keys.
Yeah, a couple of times.
At least a handful of times. And so when I knew that this was the match, going into it, I was super excited to watch Joe Keys wrestle. Again, Timmy, we kind of knew what we were going to get. And it's not going to be the first thing that's going to have you excited to see the match. Timmy's a good worker, but it's not going to be anything super spectacular to see. But pairing with a Joe Keys, I expected to see, a really good match. Only to be disappointed as the match got underway. Again, with Timmy, we got exactly what we thought we were going to get. Nothing super spectacular. Solid performance, true to what he does every time he goes out.
Sure. And he's a student of his craft, so.
Absolutely. So, the disappointing part came with Joe Keys.
Who is I believe, a Future of Honor contract holder in the developmental division for Ring of Honor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, that makes it even more disappointing then. There were multiple missed spots, multiple botches that I would 100% credit to Joe Keys in this match.
Yeah, I expected better.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, we got what we thought we were going to get out of Timmy Danger.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who's going to come out there and put on a show. He's true to his character. He's true to his role. We are going to learn more about him on our interview with him that's going to air on February 23rd. So I think there's some more to learn there. But as far as Joe Keys goes, we've seen him perform several times. And in my opinion, in the shows that he's done before, he would have been what I would consider an all-star performer.
Sure.
In those matches. And in fact, it's sometimes you have to see his talent make up for the lack of talent in others. And I don't think we saw that this time.
No.
So, I think that it was just a little bit of a disappointment compared to what we were expecting. And I'm sure that the folks at VCW were expecting different too.
I would think so.
I would imagine that someone of his caliber, when you book them, you would expect a better performance.
Sure.
And there are underlying factors there. He spoke to those on his Facebook page, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But I think that it was lackluster. I'm going to say that I'm going to give this match 2.5 stars. And that's all I'm going to give him.
Yeah, I mean, I am going to go 2.
Okay.
It was just so, for me, like I said, as a fan, as a wrestling fan, if I know a performer's in this match and what they bring to the table, every other time that I've ever seen them in the ring, and it's just so far off. And then to find out, the underlying factors that we're going to discuss a little bit later, blows me away.
Sure. So that's going to wrap up our second match. Our third match, this was a match that's got 2 great characters in it, in Irvin Legend and Phil Brown. Mm-hmm. Phil Brown being the VCW United States Liberty Championship. That's a mouthful. But both of these guys have got what it takes.
Yeah.
This was a match that complete size difference there. Mm-hmm. But unlike some of the matches we've reviewed in the past, these guys compensated for it.
Sure.
And Phil Brown and Irvin Legend, Phil Brown, that man can move.
And that's a big, big man.
Yeah. For his size, he can move. I would walk the other way in an alley if he was coming towards me.
Yeah.
And Irvin Legend, true to his role, won this match in count-out fashion. Mm-hmm. So he won, but Phil Brown kept his title, which is going to set up a VCW United States Liberty Championship match at their next show on March 9th that we are also planning to attend to defend that title against his student in Damian Wayne. So I think that's a nice compliment to one another when you've got teacher versus student, and it's for the VCW United States Liberty Championship.
Sure. As far as that match goes, I know we got a little ways to get to it, but it's going to be a knockdown, drag out, smash mouth match. It's going to be interesting to watch. But as far as Phil Brown's match this past Saturday with Irvin Legend, it was one of the more entertaining matches of the night.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah,
because there was a huge size difference. Number one, you talked about that. But the way that they made it work.
Yeah.
The way they made the size difference work. Neither one changed their style.
No.
To make this match work. That's what I think we really need to focus on when we talk about that, is that how nobody changed their style. Phil Brown still wrestled a big man's match.
Yeah.
Irvin Legend wrestled a cruiserweights match.
Yeah.
And it worked. It was believable, and I was entertained. I loved it.
And there was even that one point where Irvin Legend was up on Phil Brown's back. And you and I gave the comparison that for those of you that are wrestling fans, we asked them who decided to put Leo Rush and Bobby Lashley in the ring because of the size difference.
Yeah,
that's what it looked
extremely
like.
Similar, absolutely.
So, but you think about that, and you think about how we've talked about other matches that had size difference. And in this particular one, those two guys pulled it off better than I would have ever anticipated that match being before the bell rang. Yeah. And when Irvin Legend was on Phil Brown's back and Phil walked around yawning, I mean, that was just classic. And it was things like that kept you engaged in that match. Sure. And that match also had some of the better Nature Boy chops of the night.
Yes, it did.
That we saw. I don't know how Phil Brown didn't put his hand through to the spinal cord of Irvin Legend, but
there were a couple that sounded like they at least touched it.
Yeah. So for me, I'm going to give that match 4 stars as well. I think it was well done, especially considering the size difference that those two guys were working with.
Yeah, you know what a lot of our listeners need to understand is you and I do not normally agree on everything.
No.
But so far, we're neck and neck right here because I'm going to match you at a 4.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the match. I loved it.
Okay. So fourth match is all yours. Take it away.
All right. Here we go. Gino, the Latin heartthrob, in our fourth match took on Brandon, Mr. Excellence Scott. I will go ahead and say that this was my favorite match of the night.
Okay.
This was, it had everything you would want. It was entertaining. It was athletic. It was powerful. High risk. You can keep going with a list of things to say. You and I had never seen either one of these guys perform, so we really didn't know what to expect. Brandon is not, again, there's a slight size differential.
Yeah.
Brandon is not the tallest man in the world.
No, and Gino's
and
got some height to him.
Gino looked like he was a pretty tall guy. I didn't see him up close.
Sure.
We did see Brandon at the end and stood and talked with him just for a few minutes. So, again, the ability for these guys to put on the show that they put on and entertain for the entire time. I mean, it was, 15, 20-minute match?
Yeah.
Give or take. And it was entertaining the entire way. We even had a little bit of bloodshed. Surprisingly, not intentional. A little bit of bloodshed when Gino lawn darted Brandon into the turnbuckle, and his face misses the turnbuckle and hits the metal stanchion holding the pole and turnbuckle together, holding the ropes together. It didn't explode his nose, but it definitely busted it and was 100% guaranteed pain as the match ended fairly quickly thereafter.
Yeah. So if we go back, I'll talk about the conversation that you and I had with Brandon in a second. But folks, this match with Brandon Scott and Gino, when these two guys came out, they didn't do a lot of trash talking. They didn't do a lot of mouthing off to the crowd. That you could tell that the locals kind of knew who these guys were. So that's always nice because it lets you know that you're seeing two familiar performers to the crowd.
Sure.
So that's always nice. But what got me in this match is neither of these guys were the most, when we had our review of the CPW show, we talked about the physique of Salvation. If I think about Brandon Scott and Gino, neither one of these guys have the physique of a performer that I would have expected to perform the way they did.
Fair.
So
that's fair.
Gino, not a chiseled body, but moved around the ring very elegantly for somebody who's still wrestling in an indie scene. Brandon Scott was able to both sell and deliver moves throughout that match that were, almost hard to believe because, he's probably at least 6 to 8, if not a full foot shorter than Gino was. I don't know their exact heights, but
just based on appearance alone, that looks
so
accurate.
Now moving on to the moves that they sold, the moves that they provided, the match itself was high impact. We saw some of the better aerial moves in this match. We also saw fast-paced action. There was even a dive at one point to the outside of the ring. Everything about that match kept me bought in. It kept me excited. It kept me, looking forward to, how is this going to end?
Right.
A lot of the times, and anybody who's a wrestling fan knows that there are plenty of times that we look at matches and we know probably about 3/4 of the way through the match who's going to win. I didn't have that in this case. I didn't know who was going to get the last laugh, so to speak, in that match. So when the contact happened with Brandon into the actual tension device for the turnbuckle, you and I immediately, hands to the face, looked at each other like he just hit that turnbuckle.
I thought it was going to be bad.
And when we spoke to him after the show, he actually walked past us with a tissue stuffed up his nose, which is how I even knew who he was.
Sure.
So he pulled it out, and the only thing I asked him was, how bad did it get you? And he said that when it first happened, all he felt was the hit, and he could feel and taste the blood in his mouth the moment the impact occurred. So, clearly, I don't have an update on him, folks. I wish him nothing but the best. Brandon, I would encourage you to reach out to us. Let us know what the outcome of it was. If you have a chance, let us know. Hopefully you're fine, and it didn't require anything other than just some tissues to stop the bleeding. Gino ended up winning that match, and it was very quick after that incident happened. But these two guys have very bright futures ahead of them. We spoke to Leo Kirby's performances at CPW. I'm going to speak to their performances here and say that if they get the right eyes on their product, these guys will do just fine.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be learned by their fellow wrestlers for them to be able to learn some of that, the higher level card match performances. They were able to take a match that I really was not looking forward to because these two guys just didn't look like they were going to deliver much.
Right.
And they sold a performance that was far better than what I was anticipating.
Sure.
So, I just think there's something to be said there for Gino, the Latin heartthrob. He dressed well. Music's there, character's there. His hair was even there. And folks, I don't know everything about hair, as you can tell, but there is certainly great opportunity for him. Even within his own brand of VCW, there's opportunity for him.
Well, for all the things that you just said about him, I mean, he had the crowd. He had the crowd as much as a face could have a crowd.
Sure.
To that, I thought Brandon did an equally great job of keeping that heel, keeping his heel status intact during that match. They played to the crowd just enough during the match to keep the crowd bought in, to not just the moves that they were seeing, to not just the physical part, but they were bought into the characters for what they were supposed to be.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and give this match another 4.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and give it another 4. Like I said, there weren't really any spots in there that I didn't like. But like I said, we're tough judges. So I'm going 4.
We know after our last review that we can be tough judges.
We can be.
So you're going to give them 4. I'm going to up you half a star.
Okay.
And I'm going to give them 4.5 stars.
Okay. We're getting closer to that, to the magic number.
So, that I think is, it was worthy of it. Those guys did well, and it was a shame it had to end as quickly as it did when it did, but for good reason.
Sure.
So that's where I'll leave that match. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next match, which was for the VCW Tag Team Championships. We have seen one of these teams perform before, and that's Simply Safe-ish. And they were challenging the current VCW Tag Team Champions, the Hellcats. And I want to talk about 2 things right off the bat here. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about Simply Safe-ish. Folks, if you don't know who these guys are, go YouTube their videos. The guy that dresses as the clown in these matches is definitely the more antagonistic of the 2 characters. And the other one is the safety putz. So, and folks, I promise you, anybody that knows me knows that I am probably the clumsiest person on the planet.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I know a little bit of something about safety. Because I have to make sure, my own mother tells me I'm going to die by getting hit by a parked car.
Do you know about safety, or do you know about falling down?
Well, it could be either.
Okay.
I'm probably an expert in both. So, the guy that's the clown in this, I don't even know his name, because we know him as simply Safe-ish.
Yeah.
This guy comes into the arena at the start of the night and owns his gimmick and character until the show ends and the crowd is empty.
Yeah.
He was standing on chairs trying to get the crowd involved before the show ever started. He was taking pictures. He was signing autographs. He was engaging with kids. He was provoking the fans that were wearing, some of the heel memorabilia, the T-shirts, the signs. He did everything he could to generate a reaction from them. And guys, that's everything that you want from a character who performs on your promotion, is someone who's going to drive that fan engagement. And he does that very well, probably better than anybody else I've ever seen. We've seen several characters, managers, performers, promoters at different venues. This guy does it better than any of them, in my opinion. He does it better than any of them.
Hard to argue.
And a lot of it is because of his ability to talk. And I'm not sure if he, has some sort of secret stash that he's partaking in before the show starts, or if he drinks 5 Red Bulls or 3 5-hour energies. I don't know what he does. But if I could have some of that energy at 7 o'clock at night after I've been at work all day, I'd love to know how he gets it.
Yeah.
Legally, I'd like to know how he gets it. But overall, the match, though, the Hellcats entrance, I'm not sure the music fit them. I didn't get the gimmick.
Right.
So I understood the name, and the appearance was with the name, but I don't know that the music matched. And guys, it's just me. I'm one opinion of over 100 people that were there. Double K is another opinion. That's what we offer to you as our opinion. None of this is set into stone. It's not factual. It's just what we saw, what we felt. The only thing I would say to that is that I would be willing to believe that if we saw it and felt it, we weren't the only ones that felt that way.
Sure.
But I don't know what they were going for. Maybe we'll have the opportunity to bring them in here like we're going to do with Timmy Danger amongst other folks and have that conversation with them, and maybe we'll understand better.
Right. Yeah.
As to what they're after. Overall, in true Simply Safe-ish fashion, there were their comedy spots throughout the match. They always do it well, no matter who they're in the ring with, and that has a lot to do with the chemistry between the two parts of Simply Safe-ish.
Sure.
So I didn't think the match was bad. I don't think it was spectacular, but it wasn't bad. There was some decent moves in it. Again, we had the comedic spots. I'm going to say that, it could have been a lot worse. But I would wrap my review of them up at I'll give them 3 stars for their match.
See, I've struggled with this match since we saw it.
Okay.
I feel like if the only thing that we can say about a wrestling match is that the comedy spots were great, for me, it's not a 3. I'm definitely going 2.5. And it's not so much on the Simply Safe-ish side. Me personally, again, these are our opinions. This is my opinion. I could not buy into the Hellcats gimmick. I personally didn't like their style in the ring. Now, granted, there were a lot of comedy spots throughout this thing.
Sure.
That probably took away from something that they would normally do in a less comedic, less gimmicky match.
Sure.
So maybe they're a lot better than what I saw that night, but this particular match just didn't draw me in. I didn't care for it. Again, I'm going to give them a 2.5. And most of that, for me, was on the Simply Safe-ish side. I think they did their gimmick very well. I liked what they did with it. I think my favorite spot in the match was the clown with one of the Hellcats slapping him in the face. He kept having him look at the lights, and every time he looks up, he smacks him in the face.
Yeah.
And that went on 2 or 3 times. They tried to reverse it, and he still smacked him in the face. So that was entertaining. That was at the very beginning of that match.
Yeah.
So,
but it was great.
It was great. That was a great spot. I loved it. But from there, the actual match, I just wasn't in it.
Well,
I just wasn't in it.
And that's going to be the case. I'm sure there were those in the crowd that loved it.
Absolutely.
That's going to come with any of these matches. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm a huge fan of it or you are. Somebody, I'm sure, liked it.
I want to see the Hellcats wrestle again, and I want to see them wrestle.
So not against a team
right.
that's basically a gimmick match.
Exactly. I want to see a wrestling match, you have to have some showmanship. You have to have some gimmicks in there. You have to have that crowd draw to pull them in somehow. I feel like if you just get in now, and with the way wrestling is now, I feel like if you get in and you just go 100% Dean Malenko, you don't smile, you don't frown, you don't blink, there's nothing, and you just go. I don't feel like that works now. I feel like you have to have something.
Yeah, I think the business has changed enough that you got to have something.
Absolutely.
The entertainment value has to be there.
Sure. So I would love to see the Hellcats wrestle again in a less gimmicky, comedic style match. And I think it would be different, but if I'm basing it off of this match, it just didn't do it.
Well, I mean, again, like I said, it wasn't a spectacular match in my eyes. I don't think it was terrible,
sure,
but it wasn't spectacular. Mm-mm. So that's going to move on to our final match of the evening. And I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Well, let's talk about the setup.
Okay.
For this match.
That's true, because it started earlier in the evening.
This whole thing started early on in the evening. Ken Dixon had come out for a spot to basically talk a little bit of trash. And he was talking a little bit of trash with none other than WWE Hall of Famer, Double J Jeff Jarrett.
That's right.
Right? So during this spot, as he's talking trash, Colby Corino comes out to the ring and gets into the heated argument, gets into the discussion. There was no physicality at this time, but setting up the match for later in the night. So that match being Ken Dixon versus Colby Corino for the VCW Commonwealth Heritage Championship. That is a mouthful. You're right. The match started great. I felt like it was entertaining early on. I felt like there was a lot of energy there. There was a lot going on in the match. We've seen Ken Dixon. I've seen him one other time before, wrestle at a CPW show, and I thought he was really good then. And I think I saw the same performance out of him Saturday night. First time I'd ever seen Colby Corino. Again, seemed to be a young guy with a lot of ability, a lot of charisma in the ring, tons of energy. But I feel like moving forward in the match, I just felt like it got boring. I felt like the energy kind of left the crowd. I even made the comment to you during the match that there was just no energy coming from the crowd. There was a point in the match where I didn't hear anybody cheer. I didn't hear anybody boo. I didn't hear anything other than the match.
Sure. So I think one of the things you and I have a tendency to do is we pick up when the crowd is no longer paying attention. Mm-hmm. So, and what I've noticed when we do that is the interpersonal conversations amongst the crowd and the audience have now increased. Sure. And when you span around the room, the arena, the Masonic Temple, wherever it is that you are, and you see more people facing each other having a conversation than you do paying attention to the match, sure, then you've kind of lost the crowd at that point. Mm-hmm. I will agree with you that did fade, but I thought they did a really good job there at the end of picking up their speed, mm-hmm, and re-engaging the crowd. I mean, and granted, they did that in a manner of which resembled Jeff Jarrett, good old Double J, the Hall of Famer, yeah, coming out to the ring, guitar in hand.
Guitar in hand.
In true fashion for Double J. And aiding Colby Corino in defeating. And if I remember correctly, Jeff Jarrett's the one that actually counted the 3 when Colby Corino pinned Ken Dixon.
Yeah, the referee had taken a shot and
yes,
was down.
So
yeah,
I think they did a good job of bringing that full circle at the end of the match. So there was a brief, and I would go on a limb and probably say it was 2 to 4 minutes that they had lost the crowd.
Yeah,
the attention wasn't there, but the moment that the speed picked up, and then so they had already kind of restarted to recapture the crowd. Jeff Jarrett comes out, crowd's 100% back in it at this point.
Absolutely.
And we saw that set up earlier on in the evening between Ken Dixon and Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
So we kind of anticipated it as we were coming in. So I think the guys did well. Again, I don't think it was a superstar of a match, but I'm going to give them 3.5 stars.
Okay. And I was sitting here thinking 3. Again, I don't think it was overwhelmingly spectacular, but I think if that energy at the beginning and at the end had been able somehow to be maintained through the middle, whether it had been a shorter match, maybe.
Sure.
I don't think there were any spots in there that I would take out, but there had to be some way, maybe somehow shorten that match down. Sell the leg injury a little bit less than what you did. I felt like that during that period of the match is when they started losing that momentum.
Yeah.
And I felt like it just got oversold. I get it. I get it. I mean, it had to be there, but I feel like shorten that time a little bit, shorten the match a little bit, and that 3 to 4 minute gap of no energy isn't there.
Yeah, sure. So that concludes our matches for the evening. And we're coming up on the last few minutes here of the show. And it's time for us to rate the overall program. For me, this show, collectively, from beginning to end, and when I rate the show, I want you to understand that I'm taking into consideration the production value, the performances, and how the promotion carried out the program. And in this case, I mean, they get credit just for having Double J there. We were able to interact with him a little bit, share some information about our podcast, and we even had a photo op with him. So that was really cool. So for me, this is a 4-star show because I think the overall value of it was there. I felt like I got every dollar's worth of my money attending that show.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we haven't spoken about is not a wrestler at all. This was one of the better ring announcers.
Yes.
Especially at this level of performance, at this level of entertainment and wrestling. I mean, he pulled me into every single thing he said. When I don't know his name, but like when he spoke, I listened. And again, production value was there, entertainment value was there. Every wrestler that stepped in that ring looked their part.
Sure.
I agree. They looked their gimmick. Whatever that gimmick may have been, they looked their gimmick. We haven't always been able to say that about a lot of shows and about a lot of wrestlers. So, sitting here talking through it, I had 3.5 written down for my overall rating of the show. But I think I just talked myself into a 4.
All right.
I think I just talked myself into a 4-star.
That sounds better than me talking you into a 4. So I'm going to take it that you talked yourself.
I try not to listen to you as much as possible, if I can do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So now folks, we have wrapped up our show review. Now the next 2 parts, based off the feedback we've gotten from our first show, have become almost the most anticipated parts of the show by some of our listeners, and that is where we name our performer of the night, and then our down the drain performer. And we've got about 5 minutes left here to talk about these, so we'll run through them real quick. My performer of the night is going to be Gino. I think the guy did it really well.
Yeah.
I think that his performance was there. He's got the look. He's got the charisma. He's got everything he needs to be successful.
Yeah.
So who's it going to be for you?
I struggled with this all week long. I was telling you this before we went on the air. I'm actually going to go Gino.
Okay.
And Brandon Scott, just because I can't decide.
All right. Well, there's no rules. It's not like you can't.
I can't decide. I agree with everything you said about Gino. We were high on Brandon Scott.
Yeah.
He took the shot in the nose.
Yeah.
And he kept going.
That's true.
He kept going. He did not throw in the towel.
Nope.
He kept performing as if nothing ever happened. So I'm going both.
All right. So, folks, there's your performer of the night. That's going to be Gino and Brandon Scott. So Now that we've wrapped up our performer of the night, now it comes time for us to recognize our down-the-drain performer of the night. And for me, this was tough because it was not what I was anticipating. But I'm going to tell you he earned it in my respect. Anytime that you acknowledge that you wrestled a match hungover and with a head cold, Joe Keys, I'd have given you credit if you would have said that you had a head cold or the flu. I appreciate your honesty more than anything else. But a hangover, as a fan, that's tough for me to settle on. So for me, my down-the-drain performer of the night is Joe Keys.
Yeah, I agree. Again, had you not blasted on social media that you were hungover and that you had just wrestled with a head cold, I get it. But at the level that you are, to choose to do whatever it was the night before and still be hungover at 8:30 the following night, when you do have an obligation to the fans that are paying to see you, again, it's very disappointing. So for that, you're my down the drain performer of the night.
So Smokey Z, can you go ahead and do me a favor and let's drain Joe Keys right on out of this? So now that we've gotten that out of our tub, folks, that's gonna wrap up our second episode of Talking Talent. Our next episode for Talking Talent will come out after our review of the February 16th show of CPW Love Hurts, where we will see Sledge Gibson defend his heavyweight championship against Ethan Cross. Mm-hmm. We will see Braswell defend his title as well, amongst other matches on that card, where we are told that we're going to receive some sort of clarification about Kid USA and Leo Kirby. You're going to have to make sure that you get your fiance backstage passes.
I mean,
I
don't know what's going on.
I don't know that she'll understand it even if we type it out for her.
I mean, is he the same guy or are they two different? I don't know.
Great question.
I don't know.
I guess we're going to find that out on the February 16th show, which, folks, please keep in mind that the folks over at CPW Wrestling have granted us permission to actually tape that broadcast there. So that'll look and feel a little different for us, as it will be recorded live at the venue, and it will include small interview portions with some of the performers from that night. So that's our plan. That's our goal as we try to help both those guys and that promotion get some ground. Because, again, that's what everybody here at Through the Curtain is 100% committed to, is, providing a platform and getting as much information out there as we can and give talents an opportunity to speak to the fans. Again, folks, if you are any wrestler that we reviewed tonight or on any previous show, if you disagree with us, I challenge you to reach out to us. We have a studio. We'll be glad to bring you in. We can do phone interviews or we can do Skype interviews. Whatever it is that's going to make it work for you. If you want a chance to have that conversation with us, I encourage you to do it. I don't claim to be perfect. I'm not an expert in a lot of this stuff. I don't think Double K does either.
No, as much as I would like to think I am.
Right. So, folks, that's going to be about it for us on the second episode of Talking Talent. Again, it's Tommy T,
Double K,
and Smokey Z behind the scenes. Quick snippet. If you want to know what Smokey Z looks like, take a look at Colby Carino. That's about as close as you can get. Yeah. So, folks, from all of us here at Through the Curtain, thanks for taking the time to listen. We appreciate it, and we'll see you the next time the bell tolls.